What is going on YouTube? This is the Middle School Math Man. This is going to be a video on quadratics, and more specifically, we are going to discuss zeros, intercepts, and factors and how they are all sort of related to each other. So, we are going to start with defining what quadratic roots are. Now, I just called them zeros. There are actually like 4 different words that kind of mean the same thing. So some other words for roots are x-intercepts, zeros, and solutions. All of these names are where the parabola crosses the x-axis. So that is the definition of a quadratic roots or x-intercepts or zeros or solutions. It is the points at which the parabola crosses the x-axis. Sorry, it's a little hard to write with this stylus. Instead of crosses, I'm going to say intersects. Now there are a couple of different types of solutions or numbers of solutions we could have. The first one is 2 solutions, so I'm going to just draw a quick little sketch here. So this crosses the x-axis at 2 points. That's why there are 2 solutions or 2 roots or 2 zeros or 2 x-intercepts. One solution, there are many examples, but one solution, an example could be that it is going to touch the x-intercept, or excuse me, the x-axis at 1 point. So there's one solution, 1 zero, 1 x-intercept, 1 root. Now not every parabola has to intersect the x-axis. Here's an example of one that would not. So there would be no solution. It does not intersect the x-axis. Alright, so let's take a look at some of these problems. Now I know these graphs are a little bit hard to see, but first we're just going to go through each one of these and we're just going to identify what the roots are. Again, there are many different words for roots: x-intercepts, solutions, zeros. So if we look at this first problem, like I said, I know it's a little hard to see, but we can see that it is going to cross the x-axis at 2 points, and it is crossing at 2 and -4. So my solutions, or my roots, are 2 and -4. Let's look at the second problem. This crosses, they are close to each other, and it's a little bit hard to write with my stylus here, but they are crossing at 7 and 8. Moving on to the third problem, they are crossing the x-axis at -3 and -8. And finally, the last problem, they are crossing at -1 and 5. So identifying the roots on a graph is pretty simple. You're just looking where it crosses the x-axis. I didn't write them as ordered pairs because it's given that when it's a root, we know that the y value has to be 0. So in all these examples, they all have 2 roots, but like I said, there are some examples where you could have 1 solution or no solution. Now, we're going to take it a step further. In this next step, we're actually going to take the roots and we're going to talk about what the factors are. So I could take my roots and I could find what the factors are. So the factors are going to take the opposite sign of the roots. So if the roots are 2 and negative 4. The factors are going to take the opposite signs. The reason why it's the opposite sign, we're talking about roots. We're talking about when y equals 0. We know that the y value equals 0 because it's the point where it's on the x-axis. So we know that the y is going to be 0. So if we set our factors both equal to 0, x minus 2 equals 0 and x plus 4 equals 0, if we set those both equal to 0 and we solve this, we would get x equals 2 and x equals negative 4. That is what we got originally with our roots. So that is kind of why they take the opposite signs. I'm going to erase this. We could take it one step further. So this line, the line that is in each one of these problems, that actually wants us to write the quadratic equation of the parabola. So if we know the factors, we could FOIL and we could figure out what the equation of that quadratic actually is. So if I do that, I get x squared plus 4x minus 2x minus 8. Last step is to combine like terms. So the equation for this quadratic is x squared plus 2x minus 8. Let's move on to the second one, the one right across from it. So we know that the roots are 7 and 8. Again, the factors are going to take the opposite signs. If we set x minus 7 and x minus 8 equal to 0, because we know y equals 0, that's where the roots, that's how we get the opposite signs here. So to figure out what the equation for the quadratic is, we can FOIL it. So when we combine like terms, we get x squared minus 15x plus 56. And just real quick to finish it off, the factors here would be x plus 3 and x plus 8. And for the last one, it would be x plus 1 and x minus 5. Make sure you have those opposite signs.